Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Bud Light. Bud Light is now cheaper than water, at least at this one liquor store, but we know that it's free wherever you go. If you follow the July 4th promotions, the beers actually got a rebate that's worth more than the cost of the beer in most places. We'll get into that in more detail, but the sales are down 45% in Pennsylvania, 60% in Florida, and 31.1% nationally. That's as bad as it's been so far. It only seems to be getting worse. Let's get into the details. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. Really appreciate you guys. I'm trying to get to 25,000 subscribers, so if you can subscribe, please do subscribe. Coming from what Donald Trump calls the fake New York Times. Cheaper than water? Retailers tried to unload Bud Light. The brand is still struggling to win back customers. Nowhere is that more apparent than at retail stores where cases of the beer sit untouched. This is not just one store here and one store there. Wherever you go, whatever store you're in, look for the Bud Light, look for the Budweiser. They are very well distributed. They are in almost every store that would sell beer in the country, and it's sitting there. It's just not selling. On a recent steamy Sunday afternoon, customers strolled through the aisles at Glenn Miller's beer and soda warehouse, where overhead fans circulated the hot air. People heading to picnics, graduation parties, and other get-togethers in Lemoyne, a Pennsylvania community just across the Susquehanna River from Harrisburg, breezed into the store, passing myriad displays of beers with cases of top brands stacked high. Next to 30 packs of Miller Lite, on sale for $24.99, sat a stack of Bud Light. A large banner above it noted that after a rebate, the 30-pack cost a mere $8.99. The 15 packs get like a $15 rebate. So that's a lot of beer for $9, but it's still not really selling. Andy Wagner, the manager, said, an 18-year veteran of the store, that the Miller Lite was selling well. And the Bud Light? Not so much. Quote, at this point, it's cheaper than some of the cases of water we're selling in the back, Mr. Wagner said, noting that sales of Bud Light at the store since mid-April, keeping in mind that Dylan Mulvaney's ridiculous promotion came out on April 1st, we're down 45% from a year ago. It's just not moving like it used to. That 45% number is very interesting because I get my numbers now thanks to the great Bump Williams, who's actually providing numbers to all the media. Big thanks to Bump Williams. But the national sales are off for Bud Light by 31.1%. That's the volume. By revenue, it's 28.5%. The difference is because they've had a price increase since then. So it's less bottles and cans, less money, but the money is not as bad as the volume because the price was up a fraction of a few percent. But when you start to look into specific markets, and this is Pennsylvania, down 45%. This is another one. This came out a couple of weeks ago in early June, citing a Florida distributor where they said sales had reached as much as 60% down. So we see numbers like 60% when we look at a specific market in Florida. We see numbers like 45% down when we look at a specific market in Pennsylvania. And supposedly it's 31.1% nationally. I trust Bump Williams, but I have asked, can we get into more geographical details? And I'm waiting on a response from that because I know Bump Williams does have access to the data, and something just doesn't feel right about this 31.1%. I think it's much worse. I think it's closer to this 45%, 60%. Can't just be 31.1%. The manager says here, quote, it's just not moving like it used to. Nearly 3 months after the transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney posted a video on Instagram to promote a Bud Light contest, setting off online outrage from the right and a boycott, the beer brand is still struggling to win back loyal longtime customers. But my question would be, how could it just be, quote, the right, end quote, or the far right, as they like to say, when it's this bad? His store, 45% off. That's a lot. It's not just the right, the boycotters. It's people that have seen the promotion and they now understand that if you're into Bud Light, that means you're into Dylan Mulvaney. That means you'd like to jump into a bathtub with Dylan Mulvaney with a lot of bubbles and make a video. That's what they did. They rebranded it to Dylan Mulvaney's beer or people who love and want to hang out with Dylan Mulvaney. That ain't me. That's probably not you, and that's not the millions of people that it used to be. For more than 2 decades, Bud Light was the best-selling beer in the United States. Its sales exceeded $5 billion last year, roughly 9% of Anheuser-Busch InBev's revenue. But since the boycott, Bud Light has been dethroned by Modelo Especial. In the 4 weeks that ended mid-June, the volume of Bud Light sold nationally plunged an average of 29% from a year earlier, according to data from the research firm Nielsen IQ, analyzed by consulting firm Bump Williams. This is good. I'm going to send an email to Bump Williams and show this to him because this is not correct. They're citing the number that reflects the revenue that's reduced, 28.5, and they're estimating it to be 29%. The volume is 31.1%. I don't think they're doing it to be the fake New York Times or anything like that. It's just not accurate because Bump Williams doesn't appear to be stressing to people, hey, publish the revenue and the volume number. Newsweek does sometimes, but most publications don't. I always do in my videos whenever I have the information. Anheuser-Busch's stock has also dropped more than 15% since early April. The company did not respond to a request for comment for the article. It's dropped around $27 billion in value, a little bit more than that. It's horrendous. The stock price should not be that low. The reason it's that low is, of course, they've destroyed the Bud Light brand, and it is a very significant business for them. But if they just came clean and told the distributors they were working with, and told their investors, look, we rebranded the beer. We did not intend to do that, but we did. And as a result, it's going to be a much smaller brand right now. In the future, maybe it'll come back. But they're not honest. They're not open. They don't communicate with their customers, with their vendors, with their employees. They don't take responsibility for what they do. In an interview on Wednesday with CBS Mornings, Brendan Whitworth, the chief executive of Anheuser-Busch North America Zone, acknowledged that the last few weeks had been challenging for the brand. Here's an understatement. The conversation surrounding Bud Light has moved away from beer, Mr. Whitworth said, adding that he took responsibility for the controversy's impact on the company's employees, customers, and distribution partners. The conversation has become divisive, and Bud Light really doesn't belong there. When asked if he would run the campaign with a transgender influencer again, Mr. Whitworth would not directly respond. Quote, there's a big social conversation taking place right now, and big brands are right in the middle of it, he said. And it's not just our industry or Bud Light, it's happening in retail. It's happening in fast food. Talking about Chick-fil-A and Target. Quote, and so for us, what we need to understand is, deeply understand and appreciate, is the consumer and what they want, what they care about, and what they expect from big brands. Interesting article in NPR, how the Bud Light boycott shows brands at a crossroads. Use their voice or shut up. Well, the answer is obvious. It's shut up. Nobody needs a brand where you're supposed to be convincing people, look, a brand is a promise. Okay, that is for any product or any service. Always was, always will be. It's a promise of what you get when you buy the product or service represented by that brand. Mixed in with that promise is not supposed to be, and here's an agenda I want to teach you about so that we can talk down to you and try to force things on you that you're not comfortable with. You need to change your values when you consume our product. They should shut up. Nobody needs them or their advice on how to live. Just convince me that your beer is better than the other guy's beer, or that your department store has better merchandise with better value than Walmart does, or that your chicken is better than McDonald's chicken, which for Chick-fil-A, it is better than McDonald's chicken. It shouldn't be that hard for them to do. With the summer season well underway, the 4 months between May and August make up as much as 40% of annual beer sales. The question swirling around Bud Light is whether the slump is temporary or the new normal. It's the new normal, guys. Quote, here we are about 10 weeks into it, and we're still seeing double-digit declines in volumes nationally, said Bump Williams, who runs the consulting firm that bears his name. This is no longer an anomaly. This is a trend of concern. I actually got a chance to speak to him for a little while. Very nice guy. And I was like, Bump, this is like historic. He's like, yeah, absolutely it is. And that was the coolest part of our conversation. Next time I talk to him, I'll let you know. I was just excited to be able to reach him, to be honest with you. This is a lot of fun doing these videos. I hope you enjoy them. Indeed, most lager beer distributors or wholesalers, middlemen who buy brands from brewers like Anheuser-Busch and Molson Coors and then sell them to stores, restaurants, and bars, believe the fallout will last more than 6 months, according to a survey released this month by the Wall Street investment bank Jefferies. A third of distributors believe the impact on Bud Light will be permanent. And when they say distributors, they mean the distributors of Bud Light, who know and have been selling the brand in some case for decades. A third of them say, yeah, this is permanent. Never seen nothing like this before. Mr. Wagner said Anheuser-Busch has made a mistake when its marketing broke what he called bar rules. That means no politics, no religion. He noted that Glenn Miller's never had allowed local politicians to put up signs in or around the store so as not to alienate customers. Beer distributors, many of them independently or family-owned businesses, are acutely aware of the drop in Bud Light sales. Yes, they have noticed. Steve Tatum, the general manager of family-owned Bama Budweiser in Montgomery, Alabama, paid for a local radio commercial to discuss the backlash to Bud Light. Quote, "We too at Bama Budweiser are upset about it and have made our feelings known to the top leadership at Anheuser-Busch." He added that his company, an independent wholesaler, employed around 100 people who live here, work here, and our children go to school here. Anheuser-Busch also seems to be trying to remind the public of the people behind the beer. On Wednesday, the company released an ad campaign, quote, "We make the beer," which focuses on the numerous steps involved in making beer, as well as the individuals behind the process. It has also hinted that it might bring back the popular Bud Light character in advertising as part of its effort to move past the controversy. The company has also been buying back or swapping out cases of Bud Light sitting in distributor warehouses when they reach best buy or expiration date. In June, the company unveiled a multi-tiered plan to its distributors that included sales incentive payments and reimbursement for freight and fuel charges throughout the end of the year, according to Beer Business Daily. And we covered that here too. And basically what they're doing is, at the most severe level, they're giving distributors an extra 50 cents per case. The issue is distributors have lost a tremendous amount of money, and a lot of them can't afford to operate properly because the volumes are down tremendously. And the unsold beer that's taking up space in stores then has to go back on a truck and go back to the distributor's warehouse. And normally it's not returnable to the manufacturer. But because sales are so terrible, Bud Light has had to step in and say, listen, we will buy back that expired beer and destroy it for you, because they understand if you block your distribution into the market, you will not have distribution into the market in the future. They've got to keep these guys liquid, moving, and make sure they have cash on hand. They're also giving a lot of them an additional 5 days to pay their invoice, which apparently is a big deal in their industry. For Glenn Miller's, the repercussions from the Bud Light controversy have not had much of a business impact. Operating since 1986, the retailer sells 1,500 brands of beer in its 18,000 square foot warehouse. Quote, "So if a consumer decides against the Bud Light, which is now down 30% year to date, they are fine in finding something else to try," Rodney Miller, the chief executive of Glenn Miller, said in an email. Mr. Miller founded the retailer with his father, Glenn. Mr. Wagner echoed those sentiments as he walked through the store's aisles. Quote, "It's not that they stopped drinking beer. They just stopped buying Bud Light." So here's another example of another state where sales were down a lot more than the reported 31.1%. They were down 45%. They're down 60% in Florida. This average to be 31.1% would mean they'd have to be down like 5% and like 8 and 10% in some places. I saw an article, like one article, a couple of months ago in May, where they were saying in Houston, Texas, they were still selling the beer and it was doing just fine. And then after that, I saw additional articles saying, oh my God, Bud Light is no longer selling whatsoever in Houston, Texas. I haven't seen any articles saying, hey, in this store, in this market, it's only down 5%. It's only down 10%. It really makes me wonder exactly what's going on with the numbers and how bad it really is. I think it's closer to that 60% than it is to the 31.1%. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you think it would get so bad that Bud Light would have to be cheaper than water? That they'd be willing to either give it away for free or make it so cheap that they would do anything to get it off the shelves and to keep their process going? Because if sales really drop off severely the way it looks like they're going to do, they will lose shelf space, they will lose floor space, and it will make it more difficult for them to even maintain half the sales they used to have. That's where this is headed. That's what I think. Definitely let me know what you think in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Really appreciate you. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.